because this is a recording, we're just trying to make sure that there's no sound interference, and that's the reason why everyone's muted, but absolutely want this to be interactive. So please feel free to interact with us in the chat and we'll make sure to get to all your questions. So let us begin. We are very excited to have all of you joining us today for our very first Solar Over Louisville workshop for our program in 2023. This is a great program that is a partnership between Louisville Metro Government, Louisville Sustainability Council, and Kentucky Solar Energy Society. Quick agenda for what we're going to go through today. We're going to go introduce you to what Solar Over Louisville is. I'm guessing some of you might know a little bit based on the fact that you're here today, but we'd like to walk you through an explanation of what this program is. And then we have our installation partner, Solar Energy Solutions, here to walk you through a Solar 101. Is going to be great, and then we'll open it up for Q&A so everyone can ask questions and have them answered. And just a reminder again, for anyone who's trickling in, this session is going to be recorded, so everyone is going to be muted for the duration of the presentation, and then we will take questions in the chat as we go. So Solar Over Louisville is a solarize program, a partnership between Louisville Metro Government's Mayor's Office of Sustainability, the Kentucky Solar Energy Society, and the Louisville Sustainability Council. And the solarize campaign, if you're unfamiliar with it, is something that a lot of cities put on, and it's basically a way for many residents and small businesses to sign up to go solar together. And the city does, and our partners, we do the job of vetting a solar installer so that you know that you're going with a reliable company. And we also negotiate a wholesale discount for everyone participating so that it just makes it a little bit more easy and accessible to go solar. So just to set some background, the future of solar is really bright, which is one of the reasons why we're launching this program. We've seen that the price of solar has fallen drastically over the last several years, which now makes it the cheapest form of electricity, according to the International Energy Association. And the reason that a lot of people are going solar is because it really makes financial sense now, like it didn't, like a lot more than it did several years ago. So it is the cheapest form of electricity. Once the equipment is paid for, it basically provides free energy, and most equipment these days is guaranteed for at least 25 years, but can last almost twice as long. It's largely maintenance free, and it also has shown to increase property value. So Zillow did a national study where they found that properties that had solar panels on them sold for about 4% more than their counterparts. And of course, there's lots of other things that draw people to solar. We've seen people talk about the importance of energy independence. We know a lot of people faced the unfortunate power cuts a couple of weeks ago, and you know, some of you might still be struggling with that, and energy independence is one of the reasons that people like to go solar, especially if you have a battery system tied to your solar panels, and that's a way to be independent of the grid. It supports local solar jobs, and it also supports Louisville's goal of getting to 100% clean energy by 2040. Now, before we jump all into solar, we should mention here that energy efficiency is also part of the equation. There's a lot that you can do to, you know, reduce your energy consumption, which means you have to produce less solar to meet all of your needs. So there's a lot of great resources. We're not going to go into these details, but we will be happy to email these resources to you from the Department of Energy and LG&E after this call by email, so you can refer to those tips and see if there's things you can do. So Solar Over Louisville makes going solar easy, as I said earlier, and the way that it does it is the wholesale discount that we offer to everyone participating in this program, and also the connection to a trustworthy installer. So unfortunately, as we know, there are some installers on the market these days that are probably not worth trusting. We've heard some bad stories. So this is a great way for you to be assured that this is something that Louisville Metro Government has checked the work history, the permitting, and made sure, and the pricing, and made sure that you're connected with a good installer. We also go through the process of pre-screening your home so that we can tell you whether your roof is good for solar or not. and we're able to give you feedback. So if your roof is completely shaded or not facing the right direction, then we can give you that feedback so you don't have to go through the whole process and waste your time before you find out the feedback. So let's talk quickly about eligibility. This is open to everyone in Louisville, Jefferson County, as well as some of the immediate surrounding counties in both Kentucky and Indiana. So you'll see that map there. This list of web counties is also available on our website, so you can check to make sure that the property that you're looking for solar for is in one of those eligible areas. It's open to residential as well as small non-residential properties. So think of small businesses, nonprofits, churches, places of worship, anything that is kind of comparable to a house approximately. We're not looking at large commercial, but smaller non-residential buildings are allowed. And also there's a limited sign-up window, so we're open through the summer. So we do encourage you to apply as soon as you can. So the next steps are, the application process is very simple. So it's a simple online form that you'll find on our website, 100percentlu.com/2040. And all you need to gather before you sign up for that form is your last 12 months of energy use. And this is something that's going to help the installer come up with a custom quote for you. So you have this image on the right of my slides here that shows you, for example, I'm guessing a lot of you are in the Louisville region and might be served by LG&E, and that shows you kind of where you can get your last 12 months of electricity use. So the blue bars there will tell you what those numbers are. And if you add them up, you get your annual energy use, and that's a helpful number for the installer to know when they're putting together your quote. So we need your energy usage. We need some information on the age and type of your roof, because if you have a really old roof, we might suggest that you want to replace that first, so that saves you costs on the next time you need to, taking your panels off and then putting them back on. And it's a very simple, straightforward process that asks for just basic contact information and address. And it's absolutely no obligation and no pressure. So this is just a way for you, if you're curious about solar, to get a custom quote from an installer, and our partners will reach out to you to walk you through that. And then, if you want to proceed, you can, but there's no pressure to buy solar if you do fill out the sign up form. So talking about the installer, when we went through this vetting process, we looked at a lot of different criteria. So we wanted to get installers that would provide an affordable and competitive price to all of the participants. We also wanted to support regional and local jobs. And we wanted someone who had a strong work history and a good reputation in the region, and also who provide quality hardware and materials. And we're very excited that this time we were able to pick two great installers to be our partners in this campaign. That is Solar Energy Solutions, who's here with us today to do the Solar 101, as well as Icon Solar Power, whom you're going to also get to know later in the campaign through our other workshops. So quickly, Solar Over Louisville was launched last year, and we had a stellar year. This is a map showing all of the different people that signed up for solar and ended up getting panels on their home. So we had over 90 people participate in the campaign and go solar through it. So we're very excited. And we also saw that more than the national average, we saw more solar installed on homes in low to moderate income neighborhoods and in neighborhoods that are majority communities of color, which is, kind of great, because typically this is not something that we see nationally. So we did a little bit better than the national average in that area. So it's really great that everybody in the community is part of the Solar Over Louisville process. So some quick contact information. That's the end of my intro to Solar Over Louisville. And now I'm going to pass it on to River from Solar Energy Solutions, who will walk you through the Solar 101.
Thank you, Sumedha. And thank you for setting this up. Solar Over Louisville was a fantastic campaign last year. I quite enjoy the ability to be able to allow more people the access to what historically has had a high initial cost. And I look forward to joining Icon Solar and getting this campaign off the ground this year. Now, just to speak a little bit about our company, we like to tout ourselves as the region's largest dedicated solar design, engineering, and installation company. We go back to 2006, leaving us almost 17 years of experience across, well, not just Kentucky, but the Midwest and Upper South. You know, we have something like over 2,500 jobs under our belt by now, between solar thermal, as we started out, and solar photovoltaic, which are the solar panels you can see in this image here, and what we'd be offering in this program. We are the most certified installer in the area, with more than 7 NABCEP certifications under our belt. Our crews are all in-house W-2 employees. They know what they're doing. They have constant ongoing training, so that, well, you're going to be in the best of hands. And then our leadership is involved in renewable energy lobbying and industry groups in Kentucky. In fact, our general manager, Matt Partymiller, is the president of the Kentucky Solar Energy Industry Association. So we have we have ears in Frankfurt and mouths too. But I'd say, can we go on to the next slide then? Thank you. Again, founded in 2006, we are a woman-owned business, and we have warehouses not just in our headquarters in Lexington, where I'm speaking to you all from currently, but also in Louisville, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati. Solar is the only thing we do. Battery storage there too. And so we focus on what we're best at. We're not someone who does mostly and a little bit of solar on the side. It is strictly solar for us. Now, what we can offer you are grid tied with batteries or hybrid systems, and even off-grid storage and solar solutions, though we're going to mostly focus on grid tied systems, and we'll get into a few other applications throughout this presentation. I'd say we do mostly utility and commercial scale work, though residential is the highest volume, so it's kind of, you know, up in the air there. We're everywhere in solar, from the smallest off-grid system to, I think our largest project was a 6 megawatt solar array of 11,000 panels. So we're there, and with 60 full-time staff. And so here's just a selection with pictures that demonstrate the kind of applications that we can offer. And you'll see, you know, we run the gambit there. Now, let's step into the basics of what solar is and what it looks like. So grid tied systems, like I had just mentioned, they're the majority of the systems that we install. That's where you're going to get your return on investment. That's where it's the easiest to install, and quite frankly, the most cost effective. You'll see that there's, well, low operation and maintenance costs, because you don't have to introduce another moving part, or not necessarily a moving part, but batteries into the mix. And you can always add batteries on later when, say, we suffer through another storm like 2 Fridays ago, and the entire neighborhood goes out. And now I should note that grid tied systems without batteries will not produce power in the event of a grid outage, and we can go into that a little later too. Now, battery backup, it started out as, say, something that we did on maybe less than 10% of our projects to quickly a third of our projects, because people realized the value of being grid independent, as Sameda was talking about. In fact, it particularly helps when you're in a storm like 2 Fridays ago and you need to keep running, or maybe charge up an electric vehicle just enough to get you by. And then off-grid, these are probably 1% or fewer of our projects. They are the most intensive project, the most demanding for our customers too, because you have to be thinking about what you're going to be powering, and every scenario that could affect your cabin or your home if you want to take it fully off grid. Now, basics of solar, we have this this diagram. Basically, you're going to see the sunlight, you know, its photons will activate electrons within the solar panel itself, creating a DC current, sending that DC current down to a central string inverter, as most of our applications are, which turns it into a 240 volt a single phase AC current that your home can use. We tie that into your electric panel, and that feeds all the loads at your home at the time that the power is being produced. Now, in case where your home is using more power than what the solar array could produce, you're not going to lose power. You're just going to draw in more power from the grid. And in cases where your home is using less power than what your solar array is producing, then that solar power goes through your meter. Your utility company will register that as an export and credit you according to their net metering tariff if they have one, and that gets sent back out onto the grid. Now, net metering is something that you're going to hear a lot of our reps talk about. Basically, it's how the utility company compensates you for the power that you send back on the grid. Now, your meter will be swapped out from a unidirectional meter to a bidirectional meter. If you already have a digital meter, like I know a lot of LG&E and KU customers do have, they'll just simply reprogram that, if not physically swapped out. But basically, it can register the flow of electricity in direction so that you're compensated for the power that you send back to the grid that you aren't currently using. Now, historically, this has been a 1-to-1 net metering rate. Thankfully, Kentucky was an early adopter of this schedule. Unfortunately, though, some of the publicly traded utility companies in 2021 stepped back that 1-to-1 net metering rate. 1-to-1 being that for every kilowatt hour you send out, you get a kilowatt hour credit to your bill that you can use later on in the year, effectively making the grid your battery, except that, well, the battery isn't on when the power is out, if you understand. Now, LG&E, which a lot of you will probably have as your utility company, does credit at a rate of 6.924 cents for every kilowatt hour that you export back to the grid, and that is as soon as you export it. So that's something to be aware of, is that your energy is devalued as you send it back to the grid. There is still a compensation mechanism there for you. And in fact, it's better than a lot of utilities in far western Kentucky or just across the river in Indiana, particularly the publicly traded utility companies over there, which will just give you some kind of just above wholesale credit. Now, I had mentioned this before, but solar panels will not function in the event of a grid outage. Well, the panels themselves will function, but the inverter won't. At least not most inverters. They're programmed with a redundancy feature for safety, where as soon as they detect a grid frequency or grid voltage drop below a certain tolerance, they will automatically shut down to prevent any power from going back onto the grid, effectively so that we don't have to fry a lineman who might be thinking that they're working on a downed line. We don't want to send any power back when people are repairing. What that means for you, though, is that in the event of a grid outage, there's no ability for you to have power, even though your system is physically capable of producing it. Now, that's where battery backup comes into play, where you have a bank to use to create a microgrid, and I can get into that in a second as well. So with battery backup, you have an automatic transfer switch that isolates your home from the grid so that you have no risk of sending power back to the grid, basically allowing for your home to be its own grid island, if you will. Power from the array charges the battery. In the event that the battery is full, the battery will signal to the inverter to turn off. You'll run off of your battery power, and then it will kick back on later on. And that's without getting into the technical specifics of batteries, which are a complicated matter, and I'd be more than happy to speak with you, or any of our consultants would be. That's more or less how it works. Now, there are pros and cons to going with batteries. You can, well, be grid independent. You would have your own lifeline in the event that the grid takes a nap. You can store your solar power. You can also evade that what's devalued energy rate from LG&E or KU or Duke, for that matter, by just self-consuming as much power as possible, keeping that away from the grid so that you get the full value of the solar energy that you produce. Now, it does add a significant cost to the system, something in the neighborhood of $16,000 to $17,000 if we're talking about just a single battery. But there is an economy of scale depending on what you're looking at there. And the warranties for batteries are not quite as good as solar warranties. Tesla, for example, has a Tesla Powerwall that has a materials warranty for 10 years. Now, the battery may very well continue after that, but it's just what the manufacturer will back up. Now, when we're thinking about, is your home particularly good for going solar? We think about three main things here: shading, orientation, and obstructions or configuration. We're always looking at the trees that are around your home, significant structures on your home, either other roof surfaces, chimneys, standpipes even, because well, the littlest bit of shade does add up. Particularly if we're looking at trees, we're looking at anything to the south, west, or east as going to be shading the array. And so we want to be mindful of that. For orientation, we can get by with an east or west facing roof. A southeast or southwest facing roof is better, southwest particularly, because, well, in the evening, the sun is going to be coming in from the west. And if you're on an instantaneous rate structure for net metering, like with LG&E, you want to be producing power when you're consuming it, which would be most often in the evening. But a south-facing roof is the absolute best because we're placed optimally to capture the most amount of sun throughout the year. Now, configuration, dormers, gables, anything that might interrupt the array field just takes away from your roof's total available space for solar. And that's just something that we're thinking about too. So obviously, we don't want to see any shading there. And that's why if you don't have anything within, say, 100 feet of your home, you're good to go. Partial shading is okay. We can get by it. We have optimizers for our string inverters that fix a problem that persisted with earlier string inverters, where if one panel is shaded, the rest in that string are shaded too. Optimizers can mitigate shade and reduce the shade to just that one panel, or the bus in half of that panel, depending on the configuration of the system. Heavy shading, however, we'll be the first to tell you that your roof is not ideal for solar if you have trees right up against the house, particularly on the south side. We want to act in your best interest, and we certainly don't want to have a disappointed customer later on. Going for the same for obstructions, a free and clear roof surface is best. I know a lot of folks like solar panels on the back of the house. The back of the house is great, especially if it's south facing, but it tends to be where vents and standpipes exist, interrupting the array field. We can relocate some obstructions, but not all. And so we just want to make you mindful, particularly if you are re-roofing your home currently in the wake of the storm a couple of weeks ago, and thinking about replacing some of those vents for, say, a ridge vent structure. Some obstructions we can get by, we can place a panel here or there, but it does add to the cluttered look of an array when aesthetics are of concern, and it also makes it a little bit more difficult for our installers. So you might see a higher price for the work there. And then a highly complex roof, it is a struggle to put panels on a roof like the one to the right of this screen. Not saying it's impossible, but a lot of the ideal roof surfaces, so those south-facing roof surfaces are cut up like Swiss cheese, making the array, in this case, probably best on the south side, but you might only be able to get 2 or 3 kilowatts there, not taking a particularly big dent in your carbon footprint or electricity bills. And I just saw that question from Joe to everyone. Most modular homes can't have solar panels on their roofs because the roofs are not structurally sound for it. We can do ground mounts and tie them into the home service. Now, orientation of the roof is really the biggest thing here. Like I said, south is ideal, east and west work, and southwest and southeast are great, but we never want to put panels on the north side unless it's a particularly very shallow roof, and you absolutely must offset more of your consumption, and you're driving that conversation. And the same for northwest and northeast. Now, like I said to Joe here, a ground mount is a great option. In fact, that is the highest performing array that you would see. Maybe not particularly this one, because it looks like there are small trees growing nearby it. But most ground mounts we can put free and clear of any shade and set them at a 30-degree tilt facing due south, 180 degrees due south, so that they can catch optimal sunlight throughout the year. In most cases, generating 12 to 13% more than what a south-facing roof could at the same pitch. So why go solar? Well, there are several benefits. If you are on this call, you probably already know a few of them or have an idea of a few of them. But energy savings is probably the biggest key. Energy savings yield to a return on investment, and then you can also hedge against rising utility rates. In fact, from 1999 to 2018, we saw a historic rate rise across the state of Kentucky at 3.1%. All of our return on investment models will include a rate rise of 3%, which is on the conservative side, but right in line with what we're experiencing. Of course, the last couple of years have been pretty drastic, though. As we all know, the price of everything has gone up. Energy security, if you're going with a power wall or some kind of battery backup, you can have that independence. Home value increase, as Samita mentioned, that the study from Zillow, your home equity will increase with panels. In fact, I've heard stories of people who had solar panels, put their house on the market, even in whatever tumultuous market we're experiencing now for housing, gobbled up within a week of putting it on. Because people want something that they know will save them energy, but also you might find the right buyer and appeal to their green side. And then, of course, my reason for why I work here is because we're trying to save the world, to provide for a greener grid and make sure that our own carbon footprint is offset, at least to some degree. But let's dig into some of these details. So here we have a basic graph of energy savings and a return on investment. What you'll see are that energy bill savings are, well, the big economic kicker and most of the drive for most of the conversations of people going interested in going solar. Now, it's just going to be the fact that as you produce power, you're preventing more power from being sold to you from your utility. Now, it is careful that you have an installer who will show you what the utility company would compensate you for the power that you send back. What is the benefit there? Because you might have a system that provides 100% offset, but might only have, say, a 64% bill reduction because of the utility's net metering policies at a lower instantaneous rate. Particularly for the best ROI, we don't always want to go for 100% offset for a system. If you're living in a place like Louisville, served by LG&E, we want to shoot for a Goldilocks size, which we can tailor to how you live, when you do your laundry, when you use the most electricity, and what your roof looks like. Just to give you some frame of reference, the best system, residential system, would have, say, a return on investment in LG&E territory right around 16, maybe 17 years. Most systems come in right around 20 years for just the strictly energy savings ROI. And then if you are heavily shaded or your orientation is not ideal, you're looking closer to the 25-year mark. Rate security. Now, here is an exercise that I myself did not calculate, so I can't stand by the number. But what you're looking at would be, well, over the 25 guaranteed years of the system life, massive savings in the electricity that you would produce. So if you think of a system that costs $14,085 and you have, well, 209,521 kilowatt hours produced over those 25 years. So assuming the degradation of the panels, assuming also an escalation in utility rates, you'd be looking at, well, an average cost per kilowatt hour over those 25 years at only 6.8 cents. And that is taking into consideration inflation, where when you look to what your utility cost is currently, some 10, nowadays closer to 12 cents for every kilowatt hour. including all the fees and taxes that go into it, what's that utility cost going to be in 25 years? Somewhere around 20 cents for every kilowatt hour. So you'd be looking at savings of 67% in 25 years. Energy security. I've already spoken to this point, but having a power wall, having a battery there helps you be independent from the grid when you need power. And the more you have, well, the more independent you could. I had a call from a customer in Lexington the Wednesday after the storm, and he told me that he had 2 power walls dedicated to partially backed up critical load. So not his entire house, but everything that he needed. And he said that he didn't even realize that there was a grid outage until the next day. And he had his son over there. They were running power tools in the shop, of course, while the sun was out, so that the solar could compensate for the battery's drain. And he even had his son's Tesla over. They were able to charge it up to 90%, of course, while the sun was out. And then he never lost power through the 5 days. So that brought a smile to my face. And the home value increase. So there are numerous studies. Zillow is the most frequently cited one, 4.1% more for homes of similar size and value pre-solar, having, well, a higher yield, if you will, on the market after solar. But you can also look into other studies. We have links here. I don't know, Sumeda, if this will be shared. I would say, if not, search these, and there will be a recording that's shared nonetheless. And Ben Perry, one of our Lexington area managers, has this quote up here that I enjoy. Some people worry that they may not be in their home long enough to see a sufficient return on investment, but when you consider the instant equity the average home gains upon installation of a solar system, it can cut the payback time in half or more. And I already mentioned too, it makes for a more appealing home sale when you are looking to put it on the market. And of course, a better environment. We can offset thousands of miles driven with a single solar array, thousands of pounds of carbon. And with every one of our proposals, we will give you an idea of how many miles, how many long haul flights, and how many tons of carbon you would offset with a solar array if you're coming at this from a particularly environmental background. And of course, how we're getting to solar. These are the 5 steps that we would recommend. Do your homework. Don't just look at, well, one installer and say, okay, that's it. Now you have the benefit of Solar Over Louisville doing the homework for you, but I still encourage you to get as many quotes from different people as you can. See what all of your options are, and hopefully you'll come back to us. Now look at your roof. Think about, where on your roof would you like to see the panels, and then what time of day you're getting sun there. Now, then get your electricity bill, add up all of your kilowatt hours on that graph in your bill over the last 12 months. If you are on Harrison REMC, that might be a little difficult for you in Southern Indiana, but compare that across, well, go grab the bills from the last 12 months and see what you're dealing with. Now, then the next step would be speak with a consultant. Speak with me or Caleb or Eli on our team. We'll be more than happy to provide an estimate for what a solar array could do for your home and what we could do to offset your consumption. And then after that, if you like all the numbers and like the pitch, let us know, and we'd be more than happy to come out to your home, check out the logistics of the array, and see what we can do for you. Just to give you all an idea of what we're looking at current Solar Over Louisville pricing, earlier today I came up with 3 different scenarios for about what our average system sizes are. 6.15 kilowatts, and you'll hear in the solar industry, everyone's talking in terms of kilowatts. You might not think about kilowatts on a daily basis, but we'll be talking about the total wattage of all the panels in DC power, and then we can convert that through our proposal software to show you what AC energy that will be over the system time. So we'd be looking at 6.15 kilowatt system. That's 15 of our 410 watt modules or panels, producing. It varies between the orientation. It would be 67, 77 on, say, more west, southwest roof, or 7,280 on a due south roof. A typical home that uses maybe 13,800 kilowatt hours a year, you're looking at 49 to 53% offset. Now, there is a 30% solar federal investment tax credit that you're looking at. So after that tax credit is taken out, you'd be talking about just under $12,000 for that system. Financing, now we have seen federal rate hikes make financing a little bit more difficult, but still something that is accessible for people to get solar on their homes. We'd be looking at $104 a month if we're thinking about a 20-year 4.49% loan option for this system. 8.2, we're talking about 65 to 71% average home use offset. And we're talking about $15,000, just over that after the tax credit is taken out, and $137 a month. And then 10.25, 18,081 after the tax credit. Now, if I could do math, which I don't think I can, I could answer the question when someone asked what that would cost before tax credit. And I did not do that math right. Well, contact us and I will get you the idea of what that costs. And I apologize to everyone there. And thinking about what adds to the cost, I had mentioned it before, steeper roofs are more difficult for us to navigate. So you will see a little higher cost than what say some of your neighbors might. Multiple roof faces, again, more to navigate. Vent relocation, if you do have kind of a Swiss cheese back roof with all the standpipes and vents, we can move those, some of them, and that again is something to consider in the cost. Multiple stories, more time spent navigating, more safety precautions we have to take, and so a delayed install and thus a higher cost there. Ground mounted systems, well, we live in Kentucky, most of us at least. We have a karst topography, a lot of limestone under there, so we see this all the time. We have ways of getting around it, but typically that involves building a concrete and iron rebar cage that does add to the cost of a ground mounted system. But really, the kicker is trenching. Where is your ideal spot and how far away from it is your home? Because it could add several $1,000s to the array cost with a far enough trench. And so something that you'll see on your proposals are total price and net price. Total price is what you would have to pay for or finance. That would be the full cost of the system, always including taxes, not including the tax credit. Your tax credit would come after you file taxes, if you're eligible, which would be for the year, the tax year that the system is installed. So, you have to have the tax liability for the 30% tax credit. I think I go into that a little further, but just in case I don't, always speak to a CPA. We will always tell you we are not a certified tax professional. Financing options, well, we recommend that you check out what your bank could do for you in terms of a home equity line of credit. It tends to be one of the most accessible routes to financing a solar array, but we can also offer you financing through one of our partner financiers. Currently, we're working with Dividend Finance, who's a subsidiary, Fifth Third, and they offer good rates for going solar. What those solar loans look like is generally you'll have 2 months of the system being installed where you don't have to make any payments. Once the bank is cleared and we see, okay, you have permission to operate from your utility company. So generally the start of the 3rd month, payments will begin. Before we are 18 months into having the system, those solar loans expect you to make a voluntary payment, which is worth 30% of the total system cost. Otherwise, you're monthly payments will increase. If you do make that payment or that voluntary payment, your monthly payments remain the same. So I just want to keep you all abreast of that, and so it's not a big surprise after you speak with one of us. So here we have a case study of a home. You can barely see the solar behind what looks like maybe a maple, maybe an oak tree, but yeah, right over there. This is in Henryville, Indiana, so right across the river from us, or most of us at least. And this system was installed in 2019, and we do have a case study for how much energy it's produced over the years. So it's actually 24 panels, a 7.9 kilowatt system from us. And you can see that they're all black panels even back then, and we continue to offer all black panels too. Now, this customer went with a power wall because their utility company offered an instantaneous rate of credit that was even lower than LG&E's in Louisville. So in order to self-consume as much power as possible, they thought it was their best interest to go with a power wall, but also to provide some energy backup for a partial backup of the home. And they have an optimized string inverter there, the Solar Edge. So from June 2020 to May 31st, 2021, they generated, what was that, 10,755 kilowatt hours, which was more than what they'd consumed, but just barely. So they were particularly happy that our estimates or our performance had exceeded our estimates, and that they were able to get by there. And this is actually a screenshot from their site that I took today. You can see that, or you can barely see 2020, 2021, and 2022. I guess you can't really tell, but they actually produce more power each year going on, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't expect to see that today. I think in 2022, they had produced 11,000 kilowatt hours of solar power, where they started, I think in 2020, it was only 10,720. So there is seasonal and yearly variations there. But that said, you can see all these bars are constant, and they were installed mid-year 2019, which is to be expected. And we don't have a full year of 2023 to see that there too. Here you can see a weekly view, and this is also to demonstrate that you would get an app that would allow you to monitor your system's performance. And if we go to the next slide, we can also see that you will get a real-time production reporting of every panel. And this is what that would look like. You can see the central inverter up in the top left, that green box there. You can see every panel's performance. Generally, within a degree of magnitude, you do have that one panel that looks to be shaded, and we can even see in that one image that the gable of one roof might have shaded that one, but that was outer space economy, and our shading estimates had figured for that, and it's not too bad. So that was a lot of information. I'm glad to see that we kept it under time. I encourage any and all questions, and I'll start looking at the chat myself.
All right, thank you, River. I will pull up the chat, and for the benefit of people that might be listening to the recording later, I'm just going to kind of read through the questions and you can help us answer them. All right, so Suzanne asks, can grid tied be later converted to off-grid and vice versa, off-grid to grid tied? So I see that Patrick Farrell from Kentucky Solar Energy Society has put an answer in the chat, but maybe River, you want to answer that briefly for the benefit of people who might be listening to the recording later, or who might have missed the chat. Yeah.
Certainly. No, from what I can read, and I'm a slow reader, Patrick got it dead on, but there are batteries that we could offer that aren't the Tesla Powerwall. They're the Franklin WH battery that effectively would allow for your home to be converted to off-grid later on. In this area, we get extreme swings in weather. And so when we're planning an off-grid system, we have to usually size a solar array to be 160%, if not more, than what a home would typically consume in a year, then also have enough battery backup. I mean, we're talking about probably in excess of 60 kilowatt hours of storage on hand. And that is a lot of money. So a generator integration is what we'd be looking at. But the Franklin watt hour, I'm beating around the bush by saying that this is a battery that can integrate both a solar inverter that's already there and a generator, which the Tesla Powerwall can't do, but effectively get you one step closer to being able to say, call up your utility company and say, hey, pull my meter, I don't need you anymore. So you could theoretically build into that.
Right. The next question from Topher, how do you determine roof type? What different types are there?
Let's see there. Roof type and what different types are there? I'd say, that's a broad question.
I think that might be because I had on the slide that's one of the things we ask on the forum. So we're asking for material usually. So is it an asphalt roof or a metal roof? And that can help them kind of determine a little bit on, what might be needed.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I'd say shingle roof is what we install most on. That's the most frequent and quite frankly, the most cost-effective roof type that there is. The easiest for us to install on, and in my opinion, the best experience for the homeowner is a standing seam metal roof because we can clamp right onto the standing seams and not have to make any penetrations into the roof itself. Whereas we would be making penetrations with a shingle or corrugated metal roof.
And Joe asked, can modular homes take solar panels? I know you answered that in your presentation. You could repeat briefly if you want for anyone who might have missed that.
Certainly. And Patrick addressed it too in chat, that the metal roofs of modular homes tend not to be as structurally sound as permanent homes. And so they can't always bear the additional weight of solar panels, which can, in some cases, be up to 8 pounds per square foot. Now that is for ballasted panels. So I wouldn't expect the ballasted panel with concrete blocks to be on top of, say, a modular home. But that said, you could expect 4 pounds per square foot, which is still too much for them.
All right, there's a few questions here. Richard asked, does the homeowner have to qualify for the federal tax credit? Yes, you would. Yeah.
That's right. And it depends on your tax liability, how much you owe the federal government. This is a non-refundable federal income tax credit. So it's not going to be any rebate. There's no guarantee, and there's no check written to you from the government. It just comes off of the taxes that you've already paid in or already owe the federal government.
What will the cost reduction be if I buy a solar installation through the Solar Over Louisville program? So that would be a 15 to 23% discount that our installers are offering off the market price.
Mm-hmm. And it could be anywhere from, I've seen as low as 3 and as high as, I think once I saw 10 grand less than what it would typically be, but it is size dependent and site dependent.
And then how much added system will I need if I buy an electric powered vehicle and drive through 30,000 miles a year?
30,000 miles a year. Our in-house rule of thumb is that for every 10,000 miles a year on an EV, you would add to your consumption 2,500 kilowatt hours. So 30,000, easy math, would be 7,500 kilowatt hours. But you can always look at the vehicle specs of your manufacturers or of the vehicle you plan on buying or the one that you do have, and come talk to us and we'll figure it out with you.
Great. And the cost for a 10 kilowatt system, I think Rory also covered the approximate price range for that.
Yeah, loosely. It was 18,000 after the tax credit, I think. Now, what is that before? It might even be the last thing that I pulled up. And yes, I did. Price would be $25,830.
Right. Deborah's asking, repeat the post of the battery backup. I think maybe just a little more information on how battery backup works.
Yeah, so batteries are probably the most complicated thing that we offer. So battery backup, lithium ion batteries can't, or one of our Tesla Powerwalls can't power everything in your home 99% of the time. They are limited in the amount of power that they can charge and discharge with. So we'd be looking about maximum output currents, which basically comes down to one power wall won't back up an HVAC system, and it probably won't back up a tankless electric water heater. We'd be thinking about multiple batteries if you wanted a whole home backup, just to meet the bare minimum of the loads that are required there. Now, what they do excel with are partial backups, where you can get your critical loads. So I think a fridge, freezer, lights for 1,000 square foot, assuming LED lights, and enough outlets to say charge a couple of phones, run the TV. You'd be talking about a day and a half of continuous power without any sun to keep the battery charged. But there are more complications and more caveats to batteries that I'd be more than happy to speak with you about, or any of our consultants could.
Richard asks, is the 20% discount on the gross install before the tax credit, or is the 30% tax credit, federal credit, on the net install cost after the 20% discount? So the discount rolls in, and then you would get the tax credit based on what you paid, including the discount. Do you install monocrystalline panels or polycrystalline panels, or both? And if both, what is the difference in cost and efficiency?
Only monocrystalline panels. Yeah, I say that's an easy enough answer.
Are these systems compatible with generators and power outage situations? That is, if LG&E cuts off outflow.
Complicated. So we don't want to put, if we're talking about just solar and then just a generator, no battery in between, we don't want to put the solar on the same side of the line as the generator automatic transfer switch. So we would have to tie in above that. Yeah, it's compatible. It's just we can't have them both running on the same side during a grid outage. We would have to have it so that grid shuts off, solar senses the grid shut off, solar shuts down, generator kicks up, because the generator produces power a little less clean than grid power, and you could risk either damaging the solar panels, damaging the solar inverter, or turning that inverter into a motor by backfeeding power to it, effectively damaging the generator.
Right. I think that covers all of our questions. If there's any more, please feel free to put them in the chat. But just as a quick reminder, this is a great program that connects you with a vetted installer in the region. It's the negotiated bulk discount price that we've negotiated for all participants, both for our installers, SES included, are fantastic and great to work with. Go to 100percentlu.com/2040 to sign up. And that is just a way for you to express interest in getting a free, no obligation quote. Once you hear from SES, you can talk to them about further details pertaining to your home and kind of make an informed decision on whether or not you want to go forward with it. But we hope that this was a helpful session for everyone. I'd like to once again thank River Fox from Solar Energy Solutions for being here and for taking all the questions and for the presentation, and also to Nick Johnson from the Louisville Sustainability Council for helping us host this program, as well as Patrick Farrell from Kentucky Solar Energy Society for helping us take some questions in the chat. And once again, I'm Sumedha Rao with the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and also with Kentucky Solar Energy Society. So if there's any other questions, I'm also going to put my email in the chat and our Solar Over Louisville email, so please feel free to contact us there as well.
Thank you all. And thank you, Sumedha and Nick. And Patrick for manning the chat.
Yep. And we will send a recording and some more information to everyone. Thank you so much and have a great evening.